Motion carried. I will leave motion 23 until after the Taoiseach addresses conference. So on behalf of the Irish Trade Union Movement, the Irish Congress of Trade Union, I would like to welcome Taoiseach Joan Burton to address conference. Taoiseach, when you're ready. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John, for the invitation to speak here today. It's a great pleasure to address you as the first woman leader of the Labour Party, and it's a particular pleasure to be here with Patricia King as the first woman General Secretary of Congress. I see a lot of other women listed as prominent speakers on the agenda, so I don't know whether it's girl power, but here's to the women. The conference is meeting at a time when Ireland is emerging from its greatest economic crisis of recent times. At the same time, the European Union is facing arguably its most difficult set of economic challenges and indeed social challenges. And I want to say a few words about both topics today: the battle to vindicate the economic rights of working people and the central role of social democracy in achieving that. Next year, we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Rising, and we as a country will both look forward and look back. The 1916 proclamation, addressed to Irish men and Irish women, envisaged a republic of equal rights, equal opportunities and prosperity for all. And that particular section of the proclamation was penned by James Connolly himself. Our recent economic crisis challenged that vision, but we are beginning to come out on the right side. Ireland is in a recovery now. It's a rapid recovery for some, and we're perfectly placed to deliver a decade of strong growth, of good jobs, and of opportunity. People's economic rights are just as central as their social rights to living a full life. And that's the right to the best education we can provide, the right to a job with decent pay and conditions, the right to an affordable and a secure home, the right to health care based on need and not on your pocket or your purse, and the right to security of income in retirement. So as we look ahead from 2016, our challenge is to secure the economic rights of people at work. Crucially, we have the opportunity to achieve that. I've always said I want a social recovery alongside our economic recovery. The economic recovery is built on sustainable foundations, and importantly, it's jobs-led. There are now more than 100,000 additional people at work, and unemployment has fallen by over a third. Most of the jobs are full-time, and many of them are well-paid, high-tech, high levels of qualification. Considering where we were when the Labour Party came into government in 2011, it is significant progress. But I want to make it clear it's not enough. I'm ambitious for more, just as you are all ambitious for more. One of the first things I did as Minister for Social Protection upon entering office was to restore the national minimum wage. And in the last budget, as soon as the resources were available, we reduced taxes for low and middle income earners to begin the process of restoring and improving living standards. But there is more to do. Some employers are engaged in a relentless drive for competitiveness in a globalised market. In a globalised market, in many cases, they have to. But as a result, workers face demands for more flexibility, and their conditions of employment can be under threat. The threat of a race to the bottom is all too real. And increasingly, workers are facing this threat in workplaces where trade unions are discouraged or simply ignored or prevented. I believe very strongly that government cannot simply stand aside and allow the race to the bottom to happen without restraint. I believe in a mixed economy. I believe in free trade. But I also believe that government has a duty to intervene to ensure that people's living standards and working conditions are protected and improved. That duty extends to international bodies as well. In fact, the most effective way to secure such protections is through binding international arrangements. I believe it's the duty of government to set standards, to set out what is acceptable and what is not, to ensure that the voice of workers is heard. That's why when I became leader of the Labour Party, I specifically appointed Jed Nash as Minister of State in Cabinet with particular responsibility for this area. Last week, the Industrial Relations Bill was passed by this soil, and it will become the law of the land shortly. And I want to thank the many people here at the top table, but particularly in the hall, who have campaigned over the decades for these kind of reforms to be brought through the Dáil Éireann. The bill largely reinstates registered employment agreements, REAs. It also provides for sectoral agreements. Many of those who will be covered by the legislation work in exposed or low-paid sectors of the economy. The bill provides us with an important tool to protect their conditions of employment. The bill also provides for collective bargaining, which is a cherished ambition of the trade union movement, and it establishes for the first time that workers in non-unionised workplaces are entitled to work with trade unions if they want to. It also provides that they will have recourse to the industrial relations machinery in order to establish norms in conditions of work. And this is a hugely important step. A strong trade union movement helps raise living standards. It's that simple. And that's why Labour made collective bargaining central to the programme for government. And we're now delivering on it. The International Labour Organization, the ILO, has said that uniquely among countries that faced an economic crisis, Ireland enhanced workers' rights where others reduced them. But we do have to be vigilant. Predator capitalism can deprive people of their livelihoods in an instant, as happened at Cleary's. I don't believe it's right that the owners can act as they did while leaving workers in the lurch, and the state, everybody here who's paying their taxes and paying their PRSI, leaving the state facing the redundancy bill. We've better things to do with social protection money than bail out the Cleary's owners. So, given that the effect of the owner's actions is to place its private obligations to pay redundancy onto the state, just let me say this. I'm going to use every legal avenue to vindicate the state and taxpayers' rights in this regard. And you know, the insolvency fund will secure the redundancy payments for workers. That's what those workers are entitled to. And I want to thank ICTU for making Liberty Hall available to the department to allow us to go in and to meet the workers and also to facilitate the liquidation arrangements, because that was very practical help in a situation where even the premises wasn't available to do the normal contact that the Department of Social Protection would do in this kind of difficult situation of a big closure. A wage-led recovery has a vital role to play in raising living standards. Congress is already playing its part in fighting for this. And I want to say unambiguously that I want to see wage increases, negotiated wage increases, this year and next in all the sectors of the economy where employers can afford to pay more. And as you all know, many employers have been doing this last year, are doing it again next year, and planning for future years. Government will play its part in increasing take-home pay. In the forthcoming budget, we will continue to reduce taxes on low and middle-income workers. In addition, my colleague Brendan Howlin has reached agreement with the public sector unions to start the process of reversing pay cuts. I know that some of your member unions have yet to vote on the proposals. I sincerely hope that the proposals will be agreed and people will vote yes. But not everyone in Leinster House believes that the restoration of public service pay is a political or an economic priority. There are some who are actively hostile to any such idea. As Labour leader, I take the view that properly resourced public services are a vital ingredient of a decent society, and pay levels have to reflect this within the bounds of what can be afforded. Those services, ranging from good quality schools, healthcare facilities, and public parks, to roads and other essential infrastructure, these are vital to people's quality of life. So in building a recovery dividend, obviously it is about issues like people's pay, about the impact of taxation, about the reform of USC. But it's also about the schools your children use, the hospitals your parents go to. It's about the public transportation systems that we use. It's about the support for apprenticeships and for employment and opportunity for everybody. And that's why, making a modern budget is so complex. It's the capital programme, which we will be launching in a couple of months' time to commit our taxes to building better infrastructure for our country. It's about the investment into public services, including the Lansdowne Road Agreement, if that should be agreed, and I hope it will. And it's also about the forthcoming budget and the fiscal space to continue the reform of the USC, to lift more people on low incomes out of USC, and to achieve that in a way that does not endanger the recovery, but actually adds to the growth potential for Ireland, for jobs and for investment. This month we'll also see the first report of the Low Pay Commission. I hope and I expect that it will recommend an increase in the minimum wage. And I just want to say any potential anomaly in the PRSI system arising from the Commission's recommendations will be addressed at the appropriate time in the budget. The minimum wage is, of course, the minimum value which we put on work. It's a protection against exploitation, but it's not a guarantee of fair wages, nor is it a guarantee of adequate wages. And for that reason, I've been proud to sign the Living Wage Initiative and the Congress pledge in relation to that. In the first instance, the living wage should operate as a voluntary benchmark. That's happened very successfully in some major cities. What we're looking for is a new consensus, both at national and at European level, of what constitutes a wage that is enough to provide for a decent standard of living. In support of this view, I will, like the devil, quote scripture for my own purposes, and in this instance, the Gospel according to the IMF and the OECD. Research from both these august bodies has found that if the income share of the top 20% in a country increases, economic growth actually declines over the medium term. In stark contrast, an increase in the income share of the bottom 20% will fuel higher growth. So a living wage is in everybody's interest, even if that is not sufficiently clear to everybody right now. For some time now, policy across the Western world has been determined by a fear that redistribution would damage growth. I welcome the evidence that now challenges that belief. And I think we need to think long and hard about the measures needed to reverse the trend, both here and at home, and no less importantly, through common European action. Which brings me to Europe's challenges. Greece is top of the agenda, of course. These are challenging times for those of us who value the role of collective European action in confronting the after effects of the long recession we and many other European countries have endured. I want to see a deal that can bring an end to Greece's very real humanitarian crisis. I want to see a deal that will put Greece on the road to economic recovery, and more importantly, the Greek people. Above all, I want to see Greece remaining an active member of the Eurozone, and for all members to resist complacency about the potential effects of Greece being left or forced to exit. So let's be clear, this is going to be a long and difficult road. The Greek government will have to play its part. The demonisation on both sides must stop because it risks undermining the European project. And let's not forget how important the European project is. It's the continuing battle to vindicate workers' economic rights. The EU is going to be central in that battle, because the plain truth is there are global forces in finance and in international capital that require collective action by nation states to secure proper regulation. I can mention a few: energy security, climate change, migration, and terrorism stand out as other challenges that individual states cannot handle on their own. That's the modern reality. Let us not forget that while Ireland had to fight for and ultimately win concessions that reduced our debt burden by tens of billions of euro, we did do so at the negotiating table. Member states ultimately rode in behind us, just as the ECB bond buying programme of this year has given breathing space to the European economy as a whole. That collective agreed way forward has been the basis on which we have built and are building a recovery that now offers us immense opportunity. And I want precisely the same for Greece, no more and no less. In terms of a wider, more longer-term European renewal that places economic and social rights for people at its centre. I think a shift in approach is badly needed. It was Henry Ford who once said, "If an employer does not share prosperity with those who make him prosperous, then pretty soon there'll be no prosperity to share." The EU needs to recognise this and put a mix of policies on the table to enhance workers' skills, increase their incomes, and improve their purchasing power. Progress on this front would be a massive step in vindicating people's economic rights and in improving their standard of living. And that is the challenge that's ahead of us in the next decade, at home and abroad. As Taoiseach Labour leader, I want to see a decade of progress in Ireland that delivers on the social democratic vision at the heart of the labour and trade union movement throughout our history. And I don't want to see a situation where either children or communities are left out. And we're told that some children are not necessarily going to achieve as much as other children because the parents are not well off or they're not involved in work. I mean, we have in this country a very, very good social welfare system which we all consent to contribute to build, to provide particularly for security when people retire through the state retirement pension, which is limited, but which is very solid and strong. The actual social insurance fund is now almost back in balance, and these issues are important. But it's also important that we don't accept that an 18-year-old can end up leaving school and end up going on social welfare for maybe 4 or 5 years. We need to get that young person into an apprenticeship, into a training, into a work experience. We have to do that because the social welfare system is there to support and help people, but it's also like a trampoline. It's there to catch you when you need the help, but it's also there to help you to spring back up again and to be able to live your life independently and help you with that. And that's been consistently the vision in Ireland of the labour and of the trade union movement, that work and being in work is important to people's lives and people's participation in our society. And that includes, for instance, people who have a disability. Connolly said, and I'll finish on this, "Ireland means nothing to me without its people." And to be honest, I think the trade union movement has lived up to Connolly's commitment, not just to a territory, which we love, but actually also to the people whom we are responsible for ourselves, but we are all responsible for each other in solidarity, as people in the trade union movement would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Taoiseach. I would now like